Not understanding this is the #1 reason so many courses fail, and I see it all the time. But from having helped well over 3,000 people through my own courses at this point, here's what I have seen to be the key that makes a course successful. You have to remember, customers buy a course because they want some sort of result from it. But when you're throwing everything you know at your course customer, it's just confusing. Plus, a huge part of the reason people buy courses is because they want help making that topic as simple as possible, which, by the way, just happens to be our motto here in LZ Land. So by the end of this video, you will know how to actually teach others what you already know in a way that helps them get the best results and thus helps you make more course sales, all while keeping things as simple as possible. The first problem you've got to solve is that by the time you're expert enough to teach something, you've probably already forgotten what it feels like to not know about it. In other words, you might not even need to consciously think about what you're doing anymore. In fact, you might know it so well, you might be able to do it or talk about it in your sleep. In other words, you are all the way up to the 4th level of learning, whereas your course customers are still somewhere between levels 1 to 3. In case you haven't heard of this concept before, levels of learning is a concept developed by psychologist David Kolb, who set out to find what makes the most successful learning environment. Apparently, it all starts with understanding that there are 4 different levels of learning, which means that you as the course creator need to teach differently depending on which level your students are at. Level 1 is when you don't know anything about the subject. Plus, on top of that, you don't even know what you don't know. This is where some of your course buyers will be. For example, I once had a student ask me, "Why do you teach so much about email marketing in your course? Everyone knows that email marketing is dead. Instagram and TikTok are where it's at now." This person didn't even know that they didn't know how profitable email marketing is to this day. It goes to show that to be able to help your customers at this level, you need to also explain why you're teaching what you're teaching. But level 2 is where the largest percentage of your customers will probably be, because they at least already know what they don't know. That's why they've sought out your course in the first place. At this level, people are also more open to learning, which makes your job as a course creator so much easier because you can just teach. Now, level 3 is a little bit tricky because this is where someone has started putting what they've learned into practice. At this point, your customer might be thinking, "I've already tried what you're teaching and it just does not work for me." Or they might even be judging what you teach, like, "This is too simple. I'm already way more advanced than this," even when they have not yet gotten the result that your supposedly simple teaching can help them get, because they haven't yet made the transition from knowing that information to knowing how to use it. Your job in this case is to help them make that up level. As you can see, there is a pretty big gap between you at the peak of your knowledge and your course buyers. But that's a good thing because that is why they're buying from you. But you've also got to be careful because not bridging that gap is why so many courses fail. That's why step number 1 is to meet your audience where they're at by crafting your course to speak to all 3 levels in the ways that we just covered. But I also know that is much easier said than actually done, especially if you've never created a course before. The good news is there is still a way to keep it simple. And that's where step number 2 comes in. Because successful course creation can be boiled down to just 3 core skills. The first skill is learning how to communicate, or as I like to think about it, the 3 C's. C number 1, you've got to be clear. For example, you might want to start your course with an introductory lesson where you give your students an overview of all the modules and let them know what they can expect. Then with each lesson, start the lesson with an overview of what they're going to learn, then teach the actual material, and then share a recap of what you just went over and what the biggest takeaways are. This might feel like a lot of repetition, but this is how people learn literally. So the easier and more clear you can make the actual takeaway, the easier it'll be for people to remember and thus actually use it. The second C is to also make sure that you're being concise. And if you do this, your course will automatically stand out head and shoulders above the majority of your competition. Because it takes more work, which most course creators are not willing to do, to make your course more concise. I love the way Woodrow Wilson put it when he was asked how much time he spent preparing his speeches. He said, if you want a 10-minute speech, that's gonna take me 2 weeks to prepare. But if I can talk as long as I want, I'm ready now. And the same thing is true for course creation. For example, for me, it takes me at least an hour to whittle down a 5-minute lesson. Yes, it is tedious, but it is so worth it. Because people have super short attention spans, especially with all this short form content going around these days. And they're really busy. But putting in the extra effort to do this is why I've had so many happy customers tell me over the years, I cannot believe how much information you are able to pack in just a few minutes. Or yours is the best organized course I have ever seen. But there's also one more thing you want to do to make sure that your students are actually able to get results. Because without action, people will forget what they've learned. And that's why the third C is current action steps. After each lesson, you want to share some sort of next steps to take or prompts, whatever will help your students best crystallize that information so that they can actually get those results. The best way to map out those action steps is with the second skill that you will need to hone as a course creator: learning to understand your audience. That includes understanding what obstacles they're struggling with that you're going to want to help them address, what shifts in thinking they need to make to be able to get the results that you can help them get, and what sequence of steps will make sense to them to logically follow. Because otherwise, they will not follow your steps. Speaking unfortunately from experience. Plus, on a more human level, if you understand what your audience is thinking and feeling as they go through your course, you can meet them where they are and be able to help them move forward much more effectively by addressing their fears and anxieties. This is a huge part of the third and arguably most important skill that you will need to succeed as a course creator. Learning how to infuse your students with confidence that what your course can help them get is possible for them and that they can get it. How do you do that? It starts with understanding the mindset of someone who has just bought your course and is getting started with it. Most likely, they're excited, they're hopeful, but also a part of them is wondering, will this actually work for me? Can I actually do this? Can I actually get this result? So there's a lot of fear, doubt, and overwhelm that you also want to help shift. And you start by first cutting through the overwhelm, which you now know how to do using the first two skills that we just talked about: communicating clearly and making your course as concise as possible. Now, here's the cool thing. If you've taken a good course before, it might not have been obvious at the moment that these skills were in play. It's not like the course creator is going to say, hey, these are the skills I'm using to be able to effectively teach you. But if you go back now and look at one of those courses, and special shout out to any of my students who've taken any of my courses, now it's going to be a little bit more obvious what's been going on behind the scenes. But that's not all either. Because the truth is, a good course is not just about information, no matter how beautifully and effectively you deliver it. Your students also need to have faith and belief that the information you're sharing will work for them. Because belief is more than half the battle. Otherwise, they will give up on your course before they can start seeing results, which means you won't have any happy customers or awesome testimonials. We don't want that to happen to you, so let me give you two of my favorite ways that you can use to boost faith and belief throughout your course. The easiest way is to show proof via your own example, examples of others you've helped, or behind the scenes breakdowns of how you or others were able to get those great results. This way, you are basically showing, hey, This is proven, this works, and you can trust this process. My other favorite way, and something that has helped my courses deliver some of the best results and testimonials that I know of, is to design your course to give quick wins wherever possible, especially earlier on in your course when your students need more of those boosts of confidence. A quick win is anything that helps your student get a quick result in the right direction, that has them thinking, oh, here's some of my own proof. I am making progress. But speaking of overwhelm, maybe you are now feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Like, do I really have to master all of this before I can create my course and make even my first sale? The good news is, no, you do not. In fact, you can and should start making sales before you've mastered all of these things. And this just might be the biggest secret to having a successful and profitable online course. Because I've noticed from having helped a lot of people create and successfully sell their own course for almost a decade now, that there is a huge misconception most people have. There's this unwisdom that creating and selling a course looks like getting a course idea, creating the course, and then starting to make sales via social media and emails as soon as you put it out. It sounds awesome, right? But unfortunately, this is as far from reality as you can get. Courses are actually quite hard to sell, especially if you don't know how. So if you're serious about having a profitable course business or revenue stream, here's what I recommend. This way, you can start making sales sooner while also building a much stronger foundation and skill set that will help you grow way more in the long run. And that's where step number 3 comes in. Getting your first sales. And you're gonna do this by initially taking the course itself out of the equation. The reason courses are harder to sell is because your customer has to trust in the quality and effectiveness of the course itself. But if you don't have any testimonials or established reputation, plus you're not great with your marketing or copywriting skills yet, you're kind of stuck. So the best way to get around all of that, change up the delivery of your product by delivering it first as a service. Doing this is gonna make it a lot easier for you to get your first few sales. Plus, it's also going to do something that could make a world of difference to your business in the long run, because it's going to allow you to essentially get paid to create the beta version of your course. Because here's what's gonna happen. You'll create the teaching content for your first clients or group of clients completely from scratch, although hopefully using the principles that we covered earlier in this video. Then you'll modify that as needed for your next client or group of clients. And by the time you've worked with just a small handful of people, you're gonna have started to see patterns, like realizing that everyone starts at about this point, or everyone asks the same questions after this step, or everyone gets confused by the way I explain this topic. And you know what that means? You have basically just gotten paid to get invaluable feedback. Things you never would have thought of if you were sitting at your desk and brainstorming by yourself, which is why that so very rarely turns out well. But this way, within just a few clients, you will have systematized what you teach in a way that will feel to your future course clients as if you have read their mind and given them exactly what they needed. And this is why you do not need to, and in fact shouldn't, have your course fully created in the beginning. Because when you do it this way, you will have a chance to start bringing in revenue, help actual clients, and use all the principles we've been covering in this video. High five to that. If you already have clients, this is the perfect time to start thinking about how you can productize your service. But if you haven't worked with clients yet, that's all right too. I've got you covered with another video, which I'll link up here, on how to turn your knowledge and experience into a service and get your first few clients. This way, you are gonna create the best course possible the first time around. Not to mention that you will also have some great testimonials to share for your process as well. Plus, just as importantly, you will also have gained a much better understanding of how to market and sell your course from the marketing and sales you did to get your first few clients. But here's where it does get a little tricky. It's one thing to know how to create a great course or even sell it as a service. It is a totally different skill to know how to sell it as a course. That's why I've got this great free training to help you with that. In it, I will show you the proven strategy I personally used when I first started selling courses to go from no product and a tiny audience to selling out my first course/group program offering for $8,000 in passive income, quote unquote, sales within just 8 weeks. You can find the link in the description and in the pinned comment if you want to check it out. And if you want it, I hope you enjoy it.